WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye. Hey, Sherry, how you doing? All right. I'm a little behind, but I'm here. All right.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation immediately. We do so because the chains of oppression in our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, here to get them started, here to get that eye open. Yes, indeed. And as we always start, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. All right. And we do that here. All right. Let's start off with a PSA. All right. Wilmington is known for some good music, and a variety of musicians in Wilmington are thrilled to present summer concerts that uplift our communities and make a profound impact. This year, Brandywine Mills Plaza once again brings music in the plaza, an extraordinary experience that inspires connection and joy. We're eagerly anticipating your presence. Right. Enjoy free entertainment in 2025 Music in the Plaza, featuring an array of talented artists. Lineup includes Tony Big Cat Smith on July 15th, Sam Smith on July 22nd, Vintage Jazz on July 29th, Island Vibe on August 5th, our own Alfie Moss on August 12th, The Expand Experience on August 19th, The Mighty Squiz on August 26th, Keepers of the Flame on September the 2nd, Cole Brothers on September the 9th, Fuzzaholics on September 16th, and returning on 23rd, Vintage Jazz. And on the 30th of September, What the Funk. Explore unique items from vendors, including candles, jewelry, accessories, sweet treats, produce, purses, shoes, t-shirts. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to the city of Wilmington and our sponsors for their unwavering support. All right. Let's get the disclaimer out the way, and we'll get right on with the show. Let's do that. All right. Where is it? Up there. All right. Get the disclaimer out the way.
The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Get right with them here. Just give me a second. All right. Here we go. Music in there. There we go. All right. I know if I say it, but Brother Jafar, well, Africa has and still is the prize for the whole world. Make no mistake about that. We as a people have always been the world's richest people, culturally rich, mineral rich. We have always been the prize because we have always had and still has something that other people want that they can't do without, and they don't care to pay for. It's a quote from Dr. John Henry Clark. It's from Neil deGrasse. Could you imagine black racist anthropology? Imagine for a minute an alternate history, one where the field of anthropology, rather than being shaped by white supremacists, was instead dominated by black racists. What truths might have unearthed, and what evidence would they have presented to justify the prejudices? This thought experiment serves not to endorse such a worldview, but to starkly illuminate the arbitrary and often observed foundations upon which historical racial hierarchies have been constructed, and how easily scientific observation can be twisted to serve a discriminatory agenda. These hypothetical black racist anthropologists might begin by observing superficial physical traits. They would note that chimpanzees and other great apes are characterized by dense, pervasive body hair. Then they would point to the human population, asserting that the hairiest individuals, distinct from the limited hair on faces, hands, and feet, are overwhelmingly those of European descent. Actually, that's true. Furthermore, they might highlight the skin color of chimpanzees, often a pale, unpigmented hue beneath their fur, rather than any shade of black or brown. These observations, they might conclude, suggest a closer morphological affinity between white people and our primate relatives, implying a less evolved or refined state. Their research might then delve into epidemiology. Consider, they will argue, the curious case of ectoparasites. While field observations show chimpanzees meticulously grooming each other for lice, our own epidemiological data, they will claim, reveal a stark difference in human populations. They will cite studies indicating that white children are astonishingly 30 times more susceptible to lice infestations than black children. It would be asserted that the parasite simply prefers to lay its eggs in the hair of individuals of European descent, a predisposition that, from this biased perspective, mirrors an affinity for the dense fur of chimpanzees rather than the distinct hair texture found in people of African origin. This evidence, they would contend, suggests a preferred host environment that aligns white individuals more closely with their simian counterparts. You know, you have to think about that. Throughout that, what Neil was saying was that the racism in anthropology, if it were black, some of those views would be reversed. For instance, there's one thing he mentioned. Neanderthals, okay, were thought to be the ancestors of black people. Right? This was the general consensus among anthropologists, Western scholars, right? And that Neanderthals were primitive and savage and you know, uncivilized and what have you. Mm-hmm. And then in the 90s, they found out that the only people on the planet that have Neanderthal heritage, that have Neanderthal DNA, were whites and Asians. Africans had absolutely zero Neanderthal DNA. And then all of a sudden Neanderthals, these white anthropologists came up with the idea that Neanderthals were actually clever and hunters and this, that, and the other. After they found out it was them. And this is how white academia, how can I say, in their pervasive, evil construction of race, are so dishonest, and how they're willing to change the narrative as long as it fits their idea of white supremacy. There's a lot of truth in what Neil deGrasse said about the quote-unquote racist anthropologists, about what they said, about what they would have said. Because it's true. Very rarely do you find black children with lice. Because it's true that the hairiest people on the planet are Europeans. Okay? And that, you know what? Their bloodlust, the bloodlust of the Neanderthal, is something that they have never conquered. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye, Patrice Gibbs here. Yeah, it's something, our history, the history of America, shows how they were so determined to keep our people uneducated. You know, I have often stated that I was never for school integration, influence on my mother. Hey, Vaughn. Never for school integration. Mm-hmm. And I understand why so many of our people wanted that, because look at our schools, especially in the past, and it's so even now, where they had books that were outdated in black schools. Yeah, white schools with swimming pools and gyms and the latest technology and what have you. So we wanted to participate in that, but they were determined we would not. And this was something that went on in my lifetime. I'm 64, I was born in 61. Mm-hmm. And this is a letter from Troy H. Middleton, president of the Louisiana State University, LSU, when they were forced to integrate. All right? He wrote this to Dr. Harry Ransom, the chancellor of the University of Texas. Dear Harry, I have your inquiry on October 25th pertaining to integration on the LSU campus. Though we did not like it, we accepted Negroes as students. Therefore, they are permitted to occupy rooms in dormitories and take their meals in university dining halls. We have had a limited number of occupied rooms, and no time has a Negro occupied a room with a white student. We keep them in a given area and do not permit indiscriminate occupancy. Thus far, we have had no problem. Our Negro students had made no attempt to attend social functions, participate in athletic contests, go in the swimming pool, etc. If they did, we would, for example, discontinue the operation of the swimming pool. Since we have not had a Negro request that he be permitted to participate in athletics, we of course have not had to make a decision. If one should apply between now and February 1st, 1962, the date of my retirement, I think I could find a good excuse why he could not be allowed to participate. To be specific, LSU does not favor whites and Negroes participating together on athletic teams. Now I want to go back in this part. Hey, Rhonda. I want to go back. And they said, if they tried to get in the swimming pool, we'd just shut the pool down. That's how deep their racism went and still goes. Rather than allow their own to continue to enjoy an activity like swimming, they would shut the whole thing down and nobody could swim. It reminds me, and I've told this story a few times, reminds me when I was a teenager and we went to Wildwood for the the bicentennial weekend. It's 1976, weekend of July 4th. We stayed in a pretty decent motel there. We had a nice suite, and the motel had a pool. So me and my family decided, hey, before we go down to the boardwalk, let's have a dip in the pool. Well, we were the only blacks in this motel. We got in the pool and all the whites got out. This is 1976. I was 15. Actually, we didn't give a damn. We continued enjoying ourselves, but we watched as the kids on the balcony, all around the balcony, with their inflatable swim toys and this, that, and the other, were forced to stand and watch by their parents who did not want them in the pool with black kids. So we went, had our fun, and finally went on to the boardwalk. Do you know that they drained the pool and refilled it with chlorine water because the black kids had been in there? So we made sure the next day to go back in the pool. I hope we ran that goddamn water bill up. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs here, your third eye optometrist. All right. The celebration of suffering. It's a symptom of whiteness. How could you celebrate someone else suffering? I've watched as many of these so-called MAGA people actually celebrated, cheered these ICE agents going into brown communities and basically kidnapping people. Because that's what they're doing. Watch them cheer as ICE agents went into fields where undocumented workers were working and what have you. Came with a raid. I watched them cheer as they would snatch parents away from their children and leave the children on the street. The impulse among some white individuals to derive amusement and entertainment from pain and suffering of others is not a new phenomenon. Rather, it is a deeply ingrained and disturbing characteristic woven into the fabric of white culture. This troubling tendency manifests in various historical and contemporary contexts, revealing a profound disconnect that borders on sociopathy. Consider, for example, the recent emergence of alligator Alcatraz, where white tourists are reportedly posing with road signs, purchasing merchandise, and generally making a mockery of the profound suffering endured by individuals incarcerated there, along with the families and communities torn apart by their experiences. This behavior, while seemingly isolated, echoes a much darker historical precedent. Hey, Garland. Thanks for joining us, Gary. Historically, white individuals have actively commodified and celebrated the pain of black people. Photographs of lynched black men, women, and children were sold as souvenirs, with some chilling images depicting white families gathered together, smiling beneath bodies of the victims. A particularly horrific instance is the 1916 lynching of Jesse Washington in Waco, Texas, where he was burned alive before an audience of 10,000 white spectators, including entire families. I remember one of these photos that I've seen. I remember, I can't think of her name now. Dr. DeGruy, I think that's her name, speaking on this. And she showed this photo of this black man being lynched. And in the photo was a 10-year-old, looked to be about 10-year-old white girl, smirking, smiling. Now that same girl, if you were to have killed a puppy in front of her, would have lost her mind. She would have been traumatized. Cried her eyes out. Cried her eyes out. But stood there and watched this black man lynched with pleasure, with smirk, with satisfaction. Yeah. So after, I don't know if I said this, after Jesse Washington's lynching, his body was mutilated and in part sold as souvenirs, macabre as it could be. Stephen Lee said, I saw an official highway sign from Florida that read Alligator Alley up ahead. And let us not forget the term gator bait and where that comes from. It comes from the fact that they would take black babies and use them for alligator bait. This pattern of deriving entertainment from atrocity extends to the forced removal of indigenous peoples. Entire toy industries have profited from the narrative of their displacement, while visitors to sites like the Trail of Tears often fail to engage with the genocidal history they represent. Similarly, once active plantation sites steeped in the brutal reality of chattel slavery have been reimagined as romantic venues for weddings, effectively sanitizing and celebrating a history of profound human exploitation. Those examples are far too numerous to dismiss as isolated incidents. When white people today take smiling selfies at a detention center, it is not merely a thoughtless act. It is a symptom of whiteness itself. A culture of control and disconnection so profound that it verges on sociopathy. What else can one call it when the destruction and suffering of communities become a source of entertainment for a dominant culture? It's not that white people are inherently devoid of empathy. Rather, they have been trained to suspend empathy in exchange for power, comfort, or a sense of belonging within this cultural framework. If you are white and you are not actively working to rewire your relationship to pain, especially the pain of other people, you are by inaction complicit in this culture of cruelty. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Yeah, if you want to know who rules over you, look at who you are not allowed to criticize. I saw a video, I think it was on TikTok, where this restaurant in Madrid, Spain, was visited by some tourists. And when the Spaniard owner of this restaurant found out where these people were from, he put them out. They were Israelis. He told them, "You hungry? You hungry? Go find a restaurant in Gaza." He snatched up their menus. And as one lady was leaving, "Oh, can I just pay for this drink?" He said, "Go ahead and take it. I just want you the hell out of here. I'll pay for the drink." Yeah, sorry. Oh, I see you, bro. Steve. He mentioned Alligator Alley. He meant Alligator Alcatraz. Yeah. But anyway, like I was saying, he put them out. Now, if that happened here, okay, you criticize some Israelis, not based on your feeling for Jews, but based on what they've done, based on the genocide that they are committing on the Gaza Strip. That restaurant might have been shut down. And if you were a legal immigrant, the Orange Disasters regime might have showed up and tried to deport everybody and raided your kitchen. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. If you want to know who rules over you, look at who you are not allowed to criticize. You get it? You know what? I don't want no people. I don't give a damn. If you're sorry, racist, oppressive, genocidal, I'm going to call your sorry ass out. Right here on the Open Eye. Then I'm going to call this sorry person out. Sorry bastard. Because he's shown us what a coward he is. Because the last time there was a big storm in Texas, he hauled ass, took his family to South America somewhere. Talking about Ted Cruz. The best early warning system for natural disasters is Ted Cruz leaving the country for a vacation. That'll let you know, hey, Brother Al. That's Alan Lawrence there, tuning in. Catch Brother Alan the day at 5 on the Weekend Review with Alan Lawrence right here on WHGE 95.3 FM. Yes, Dean. Yes, Sister Sherry said, I still remember when Ukraine refused to let black people living there from leaving when the war first started. Yes, indeed. Remember that. Not going to forget it. Back to saying about, if you want to know about a national disaster coming, look at the coward Ted Cruz. Oh yeah, he's definitely a coward. He's definitely a coward. And I'll tell you something. I've seen some of these MAGA people who are now in Texas suffering from the flood. It's a terrible thing. You see these people suffer. I've seen this one lady, and she's becoming well known over the internet. Now she was just celebrating brown people, Hispanic people being kidnapped by ICE. Oh, she was clapping and making fun of people mourning their families being torn asunder, being kidnapped by ICE and deported to who the hell knows where. Oh, she was celebrating that. And then along come the flood. With the incompetent Trump administration having destroyed the weather service, so they didn't have any warning system in place anymore. They didn't have any competent people. And the governor throwing up his hands. Nothing I can do. Now, these same MAGA people are on all over the internet crying about, oh, somebody got to help us. Oh, somebody got to help us. And now she's surprised nobody has any goddamn empathy for her sorry ass. Why the United States has basically turned its back on the people suffering from the flood. And it's not the only natural disaster. Was it the tornadoes in Oklahoma? Not getting no help. Yeah. Well, while this was going on in Texas, who jumped up and came to their rescue? The same brown people that you deporting, the Mexicans, jumped up. Here they come with supplies, backpacks, equipment. While the American government, and their pundits and mouthpieces and what have you, are trying to find someone to blame. Like the despicable, idiotic MAGA podcaster Charlie Kirk. What's he do? He blames DEI for the deaths in Texas flooding. And a shockingly blaming what he calls DEI fire chief for the deadly flooding that killed so far 119 people. And there's another 173 people missing just over the 4th of July holiday. On his podcast, this sorry-ass white supremacist ranted over Democrats who he called despicable. He accused them of not lifting a finger to remember those who died and said they were responsible for the catastrophe early Friday morning in central Texas when the Guadalupe River overran its banks before dawn. It rose in more than 25 feet in just a couple of hours. The raging flood waters overwhelmed unsuspecting holiday campers and revelers who had almost no warning before the disaster struck. Dozens of children were among those killed. And what does Kirk do? This racist son of a bitch pointed the finger at diversity, equity, and inclusion policies for the tragedy. What you are not being told by the media anywhere is that the death toll is likely would not have been that high if it wasn't for DEI. Blame the Austin Fire Department. Okay, which is 2 hours away from where the main disaster happened. Yeah. When you hire people based on race, you're not hiring based on skills. You know what? You need to tell some white people that. The whole Trump administration, the whole regime, all of them hired on racism, on their whiteness, and not a goddamn one of them competent. Are you kidding me? WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yep. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. More on tragic floods in Texas Hill Country. In the early morning hours of Friday, July 4th, the Texas Hill Country was inundated with rain, causing massive flooding. The Guadalupe River rose over 20 feet in less than 45 minutes. As a result, there have been more than 120 deaths, and there are still over 160 people still missing. These floods captivated the nation, but there is a question I want to know the answer to. Are black communities threatened by this kind of disaster? It's from Lawrence Ware. Columnist Lawrence Ware asked this question. Let's do some groundwork to get that answer. If you have not heard of environmental racism, the disproportionate exposure of marginalized groups, particularly black people, to environmental hazards and pollution, I encourage you to read up on it. Put simply, if white people did not want to live in a certain area, they pushed black people into it. History is full of examples of this. The formal term for it is called redlining. Excuse me. Because of practices like these, predominantly black communities are overly located in areas susceptible to things like natural disasters. Two examples of this would be the Great Mississippi Flood in 1927, where hundreds of thousands of black families were forced to flee their homes and move to other parts of the country. And of course, let us not forget Hurricane Katrina, where our own American citizens, because they were black, were treated as if some unwelcome refugees. But those natural disasters are in the past. Surely things are better now, right? Wrong. Well, we have to talk science for a second to understand why. Scientists have been sounding the alarm about climate change for decades. And you've been paying attention. What they are saying makes sense. When the atmosphere is warmer, it can hold more water. That is not science fiction. That is simple simple physics. So when you combine an atmosphere that is holding more water with normal weather patterns, what you get is more extreme weather. Flooding has gotten worse, as have hurricanes and tornadoes. So now let us put all this together and answer the question above. How likely is it that flooding, like what we see in Texas, will impact black communities? Well, the answer is simple. By 2050, the risk of major flood to black communities disaster will increase by 20%. One of the reasons for this are rising sea levels that will result in stronger storm surges. There will be higher levels of water that reach inland because of these surges. And this will impact communities with large African American populations on the Atlantic and Gulf coasts. This is science. Science warns of this. They call for more money to be invested in meteorology to help predict these storms before they arrive. They also insist that there be better flood warning measures implemented in these communities. However, with the Department of Government Efficiency's recent cuts to National Weather Service and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that ain't happening. Let's just tell the truth and shame the devil. It's not a question of if something like what happened in the Texas Hill community will happen to a black community. It's a matter of when. And these idiots running around, well, I don't believe in climate change. I don't believe, like, as if it's some philosophy or some religion. It's science, you idiots. It's science. Which is so food and so stupid that you can't see past your own ideology, warped as it is, to the danger that you put yourself in. You're like roaches calling for raid. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. You know, as these deportations continue to happen, the Orange Disaster said the quiet part out loud. He slipped up and said exactly what he meant. Last week, President Trump toured his new immigration detention facility at the Dade Collier Training and Transitional Airport inside Big Cypress National Preserve. This facility is in a part of Florida called the Everglades and is surrounded by alligator and python infested waters. This is why the president refers to the facility as Alligator Alcatraz. The Trump administration's hardline approach to immigration was met with protests in LA that he just shrugged off. The people who caught his attention were farmers and hotel owners who said their businesses relied on illegal immigrants. Oh yeah, they urged the tangerine tyrant to come up with a way for them to keep their employees while he attempts to keep the promises he made on the campaign trail. His solution? Slavery. You may think I'm being hard on the commander-in-chief. No. I couldn't be hard enough on him. This is what he actually said. We have a lot of cases where ICE will go into the farm, and these are guys that are working there for 10, 15 years, no problem. The farmers know them. It's called farmer responsibility or owner responsibility. But they're going to be largely responsible for these people. And let's demystify what he said. He is saying with his whole chest that in order for illegal immigrants who work in these spaces to stay in the country, the farmers and hotel manager that employ them must personally take responsibility for them. They will essentially oversee them. Hence the tangerine tyrant using the phrase owner responsibility. What he's saying is that his solution to the concerns raised by his hardline illegal immigration policy is a situation where the people who employ them must take responsibility for them being in the country. This could result in a horrific situation where people are scared to leave their current job for a higher paying one because they are afraid they will be deported. Let's go further. Who would put it past these employers, now that they have all this power, to start cutting back their employees' pay? Or to demand they work longer hours for the same amount of pay? And who could the workers turn to in that situation? The reason why unions exist is because workers had to unite. That was the only way those who employed them would treat them with any fairness. That's why this Lawrence Ware, who brought this to us, said the quiet part out loud. Said that the president said the quiet part out loud. The people who voted for him know what he is suggesting. And just like with slavery, he is proposing a system where illegal immigrants will be treated not like people, but like property. And it's not something new in places like Florida. There's an urban legend that I learned about as a teenager about a place in Florida called the Muck. This was in the 70s. Okay. The Muck in Florida was a place where slavery was still going on. And there were still people being taken out of there by rescuers. Yeah. Absolutely right, Brother Gary. Stephen Miller, the deporters are, and now they're not even hiding it. They're being raw bold with it now. Just straight up, that they are targeting brown people, and their goal is slavery. That's their goal, bigger than big. All right. Now, just this week, it looks like some MAGA people are turning on the orange disaster. All right. His press secretary, Pam Bondi, once said she had Epstein's client list on her desk, but now it turns out that she didn't. And there never was one, according to her. Allies of the orange disaster had turned on Attorney General Pam Bondi following the Justice Department's announcement. Oh, Pam Bondi, yeah, she's the Attorney General. Jeez Louise. You know, I'm sorry. I get these blonde hair idiot hussies mixed up. I got her mixed up with the other hussy, the other idiot. Yeah. So MAGA people are turning on her. Now they're saving some of the worst criticism for Pam Bondi, but she's just doing as she's told. That's all she's doing, because Trump is on Epstein's list, if there is such a list. Yeah, photos all over the place. Him hugged up with Epstein and what have you. And now the MAGA people are mad at him, and they're talking about they're not going to support him and this. Now all this stuff that went on, cuts to Medicaid and EBT, MAGA farmers losing their farms because the programs that supported them have been cut off. None of that made them turn against him, against the orange disaster. But this thing with being on Epstein's list, and they already know he is a sex offender, and they were okay with that. for holding back this list that he's on. Oh, that just upset them to no end. You know, seeing Candace Owens and what's that racist hussy on Fox? Her. And saw Alex Jones, ain't that his name, Alex Jones? Actually fighting back tears and was fighting back vomit. And he was so upset. Candace Owens, I just can no longer be with this. You know, he's part of this conspiracy theory. He's part of the deep state. All of y'all full of it. That's just your out. You know the things he's done, the implementation of 2025 was a disaster for the country. That you just couldn't bring yourself to admit it. But now that you realize this disaster that is the Tangerines tyrant's regime is actually affecting you, you found it out. The conspiracy theory about Epstein. You full of stuff. Oh, and if you think that now we're going to say, oh, you finally woke up, come on over to the camp, you go to hell. You go to hell. Not with it. That's a, I don't care how many times Candace Owens denounces the orange disaster and what have you. Yeah, it is, Brother Gary, very easy to do with these empty vessels. If I was a restaurant owner and I happened to walk out and Candace Owens was sitting at one of my tables, I'd fire any goddamn body that brung her anything, get her ass out of there. And hell no, she cannot come to the barbecue. And I don't know if we have time to deal with the orange disasters regime until the next, to the midterm elections. But if we do 33 Senate seats and all 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for election. Let's see where these MAGA people are then. If we have time to make it, because we need to get him out of there right away with the stuff that's going on. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs here, your third eye optometrist. Let's keep it moving. Your teacher asks, how did World War I start? The student answered, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Yup. Well, how did World War II start? Germany invaded Poland. How did World War III start? No one showed up to the birthday party of a cognitively deteriorating authoritarian and poorly applied orange face paint. And, you know, something about a squeaky tank. Authoritarian. Yeah. From Stacey Abrams, the Autocrat's Playbook, a 10-step descent into authoritarianism. When autocrats seize power, they often follow a predictable, chilling progression. We've witnessed and are perhaps currently experiencing a modern manifestation of this 10-step plan nearing its perilous conclusion. Step 1, the Trojan horse election. The journey begins with a free and fair election, yet it is deceptive. is a deceptive facade. The victorious autocrat, or their chosen ticket, harbors no intention of relinquishing power. They've just won. This is the last democratic contest, as their true aim is to consolidate and retain control indefinitely. Step 2, executive overreach. Immediately, the newly empowered leader exceeds the established boundaries of executive power. A flurry of executive orders emerges, claiming authority far beyond what the office traditionally holds, effectively rewriting the rules of governance through decree. Step 3, neutralizing checks and balances. The next target is the separation of powers. Competing branches of government, Congress and the judiciary, are systematically undermined. And once vigilant Congress becomes complicit or simply forgets its oversight duties, the judiciary is either co-opted or rendered impotent. If the executive branch unilaterally defies judicial rulings, the judiciary's power is effectively neutralized as it lacks direct enforcement mechanisms. Step 4, silencing the media. Autocrats swiftly move to control the narrative. They demonize and relentlessly criticize legitimate media outlets, eroding public trust. Those easily fooled. Simultaneously, they construct an echo chamber of state-controlled propagandistic media, ensuring that only their version of the truth, often devoid of any facts, reaches the populace. Step 5, gutting government and civil service. A crucial step is to dismantle the very infrastructure of democracy. They begin to gut the government, firing experienced civil servants, see that going on, who understand and uphold democratic processes. The aim is to make citizens believe they no longer need democracy. Achieved by disrupting essential services they come to rely on. By doing so, the autocratic position themselves as the sole provider of solutions. That requires competence, which these fools don't have. Just imagine the CDC being defunded, leading to rising disease, or FEMA being dismantled, which they plan to do, forcing citizens to beg for aid after a disaster, and you got a foreign country coming in providing that aid. This deliberate paralysis of the civil service ensures that no one can perform the work democracy is designed to protect. Concurrently, loyalists are installed in key positions, ensuring that dissent is stifled and only those who align with the autocrat's agenda are hired. Step 6, targeting independent voices. The assault continues on any remaining independent institution, law firms, and philanthropic organizations that challenge the autocrat's agenda or support marginalized communities become targets for lawsuits and other forms of harassment, aiming to cripple their ability to do good work. Step 7, manufacturing blame. To deflect accountability and consolidate power, autocrats require a scapegoat. You see that? They blame women, children, black people, immigrants, and any other perceived other. This tactic fuels internal divisions, forcing the populace to fight amongst themselves for survival rather than uniting against the encroaching authoritarianism. Step 8, incentivizing private violence and militarization. As control tightens, the autocrat begins to incentivize private violence and militarize the state's response to any opposition. This could involve deploying the National Guard or Marines to suppress dissent, or even the illegal kidnapping, the detention of citizens. Any challenge to our authority is labeled as obstruction of justice. You're paying attention because this is what's going on. Step 9, suppressing civic participation. This is the current precarious stage with the state's militarized response. Citizens are discouraged from exercising their First Amendment rights. Watch what you say. And engaging in civic participation. The threat of arrest, detention, or violence makes the potential pain of speaking out seem too great, effectively silencing dissent and fostering an atmosphere of fear. Don't be scared. Once step 9 is achieved, step 10 becomes chillingly simple. Ensure no one ever votes again. With the populace captive, scared, and impoverished, the autocrat's power is absolute and unchallengeable. This is the culmination of autocracy, where democracy is fully extinguished. Don't let it happen, y'all. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. I want to thank everyone for joining us. And Brother Gary, and will these fools wake up? Only long enough to correct the things that hurt them. Russell Voigt, the director of the Office of Management and Budget, also the author of 2025 and their game plan. Yes, indeed, Brother Gary. You have to wonder how we got here. How did we get here? How did these white supremacists maintain control like this? So a major league. And as soon as I saw this, yeah, this is how. It's the enduring legacy of unpunished treason. The assertion that our current societal struggles stem from a failure to adequately punish the Confederacy for its treasonous actions in the Civil War is profoundly accurate. The South lost the war, yet they were never truly held accountable. And the repercussions of that oversight are still felt to this day. This essay explores 3 key aspects of this unaddressed historical injustice. Instead of burying the Confederacy in shame, America allowed it to rewrite its own narrative. After the Civil War, the South successfully rebranded its cause. The fight to preserve slavery was recast as a noble struggle for states' rights, heritage, and honor. This dangerous revisionism was not challenged, it was permitted. It wasn't just permitted, but it was supported and it was used. Remember how Ronald Reagan made roasted hell and made the devil sodomizing with a pitchfork, started his campaign for presidency in Philadelphia, Mississippi, with the words, "I believe in states' rights." Consequently, monuments and statues to traitors were erected on public land, allowing the losers to assume the mantle of heroes. This whitewashing of history has had profound consequences, as evidenced by the descendants of this ideology, who are now attempting to ban books and even storm the Capitol. That's right, Brother Gary. These people were actually paid for their losses. Lincoln paid reparations to the former slaveholders. Reconstruction offered a crucial opportunity to mend the nation and establish true equality. Black Americans were elected to Congress, schools were built, and communities began to flourish. However, the unpunished Confederates found new avenues to reassert white supremacy. The rise of the Ku Klux Klan, followed by the insidious implementation of Jim Crow laws and widespread voter suppression, systematically dismantled the progress that was made. The North regrettably stood by and watched, allowing the defeated South to regroup and relentlessly crawl its way back to power. This unchecked resurgence has had a lasting impact on American society. The continuing ideology. The disturbing truth is that the same ideology that fueled the Confederacy continues to permeate our government today. The very states that proudly flew the Confederate flag in 1861 are now at the forefront of efforts to erase history, restrict voting rights, and undermine bodily autonomy. They have traded their Confederate uniforms for suits, podcasts, and media contracts, but the underlying tenets of their ideology remain. America's choice of unity over justice after the Civil War has allowed the great-grandchildren of Confederate sympathizers to shape legislation and propagate falsehoods until we confront the uncomfortable truth that this country never truly moved past the Confederacy. Genuine progress will remain elusive. The time has come to acknowledge that America's failure to properly punish treason has created a deeply rooted problem that continues to plague us. Moving forward requires commitment to justice, historical honesty, and dismantling the lingering structure of white supremacy. They want to cry, America's a Christian nation. No, it's not. America's religion is white supremacy. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist, ready to close them out. I want to thank you all for joining us. I also want to thank those that have posted things that spurred me to research or reminded me of things and what happened. And those that I've quoted and what happened. And as we always tell you, and let me say this first, hope you learned something, because I learned something before I got here. And remember, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been The Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining us. All right. Thanks for joining us. I'm not even talking much about Africa today, but I have some things coming up that I will definitely bring to you. As I always tell you, GAS, Global African Supremacy, because the world was a much better place when the African ruled. Peace.